Okay, so this is our assignment, and we are supposed to write a program to basically perform these functions. There have been some requirements that we are supposed to write a program to fulfill. So before we go to the program itself, I will say you create a folder for that particular program so that we store our program files within it. So I'll go to my desktop and I'll create a folder called, let's say, Java assignment. So what I'll do is I'll open VS Code to open this folder. So what I'll do is I'll use VS Code to open this folder so that we work within the folder inside VS Code. So I'll come and open my Visual Studio Code. Okay, so this is Visual Studio Code, and what I'll do is to open that particular folder with this program. So I'll come here, come to open folder. Then the name of my folder, I saved it on the desktop. So I'll come to the desktop, and the name of the folder was Java assignment. So I'll select the folder and click select folder. Okay, so I have my folder open inside VS Code. What I'll do is to create my Java file that will have my source code. So I can use this new file. I can also come to file and select new file, and then I can also bring my mouse here and select the first one, which is new file. So I click on it. Now I can name my file. So I can make it payment information or payment info.java. The extension is very important. The .java is very important to add, or else the computer will not see this particular file as a Java file. So add .java and hit enter. Okay, so I have my Java file created inside the folder I created on the desktop. So right now we can head towards to creating the program itself. So as per our assignment, where is the file again? So if you look at our assignment, one of the requirements says that we should comment your name, index number, and center at the top of the code. So at the top of the code, we should add a comment with our name, our index number, and center. So I'm going to do that one first. Morning, senior. So you can decide to use either a single line comment or a multi-line comment. So let's vary our answers so that it doesn't create any problem for us. So I can decide to use single line comment. If I'm using a single line comment, I'll use 2 / and I can type name. So my name is Juma Odro Emmanuel. So another single line comment with index number. maybe 654412 with another single line comment for center, which is Kumasi. So these three lines satisfies our first condition. It says we should comment our name, index, and center at the top of the code. So one can choose the single line comments. A different person can also do it this way. Instead of the single line comments, you do a / and then asterisk for a multi-line comment. So I can now bring this part down by pressing enter. So what I'll do is I'll type name Juma Odro Emmanuel. Index 621132554, and then center Kumasi. So all these two are accepted. Either you use single line comments or you use a multi-line comment in this manner. So our first thing has been achieved successfully. So we go to the code itself. Now Java is such that you have to first create a class. Java is an object-oriented programming language. Java is an object-oriented programming language. So the first thing that you have to do is to create a class for it. So if you are creating the class, what you use is public class, and then you name the class. You give the class a name. The name of the class should correspond to the name of the file that you give it without the .java. So I give it payment info. So this is the name that I gave to my file. That's why I'm giving it the same name. So my file name is payment info.java. That's why I'm also giving it a class of payment info. Then I can bring my curly braces, press enter to bring the ending part downwards. So I've created the class. Within the class, we also have to create the main method. So these two are always found in every Java program, a class and the main method. The main method is inside the class, not outside. So if it is inside the class, I cannot code the main method here, and then I cannot code the main method on top of this one. The main method should be within the curly brackets of the class of the class that we created. So it should not be at the top, it should not be at the bottom, it should be in the middle. So I'll indent it, and then to give the main method, what we do is to type public static void, then the word main, bring our brackets, and then string. And mind you, the S for the string is capital. Then we bring a square bracket. Then we give a space and type ARGS for arguments. So this main method also needs a curly bracket, just like we gave the class. So at the end of the main method, I'll add another curly braces and press enter. So what I've done is I've created a class and named it payment info. This is the beginning of the class and then the closing of the class. And within that class, I've created a main method, and that main method also has a curly braces here, and then And that main method also has an opening curly braces here and a closing curly braces here. So let's put in our head that the class has a curly braces, and the main method also has a curly braces. There is no comma between the string and then the args, but this square bracket is always added to the string. So we have achieved the two basic things that we need to be able to create a Java program: a class and a main method inside the class. Okay, so we are continuing here to also. When we look at the question now, the question says that we should write a program that accepts the staff name, number of hours he or she worked, and the number of children he or she has as input from the keyboard. So it means that the program that we are going to run, at a certain point in time, the user is supposed to input all these into the program. And by default, Java does not allow input from the computer system unless you create an object to allow input to the system, to your program, to allow input to your program. So that is where, so we have to create that particular object. So that is the next thing that we are going to do, creating the object that will be used to accept input from a user. So I'll go back to my VS Code. So to create the object, we need a method called scanner. So we have to first import that particular method into our program. And to import that method, this is how it is done. You are importing that method from Java, and within Java, you see that within Java we have several things within Java. We have applet, AWT, whatever, desktop. We have AWT, we have beans, we have IO, we have lang. So what within Java do you want to import? We want to import the util within Java. So within Java, we want to go into the util part of Java. And then within the util, that is where you find our scanner method. So we are importing the scanner, but the scanner can be located inside util, and then the util can be also located inside Java. So I've imported that method that we'll be using to create the particular object that we need. So to create that object, I'm going to use the scanner that we imported. So I'll type scanner. And then I'll give the object any name that I want. But in this case, I'm going to choose input. But the name depends on you. Whatever name that you want, you can what? Choose it. So scanner input is equal to, so we are creating a new scanner. So I add a new scanner. So we are using the scanner to create a new scanner object called input. And that particular object is going to accept input from the system. So I have to add system.in inside a bracket and end with a semicolon. So by doing this, I've used the scanner method to create an object called input. And then this object is what we will be using anytime that we want to accept input from the user. So the object has been created. Okay, so our question says that we are accepting input for 15 employees. So there are options that you can take. You can decide to either make your program loop for 15 employees anytime the program is run, or you can decide to allow the user to input the number of employees himself or herself. So two ways: either you allow the user to input the number of employees himself or herself, or you give it the number right from the beginning. So what I'm going to do first is try and make our program in such a way that the user will not enter the number of employees he or she wants. The program already is fed with the number. So for that, I'll use a for loop, and the for loop needs a starting value. So I'll create a variable for it. So I give it a variable called I. So the data type is integer. So I is equal to, I am starting from 1. So I end with a semicolon. Where am I ending? So the I should be less than or equal to 15, because you want it to run 15 times. Then I end with a semicolon and add I plus plus. So the initial value will be increasing by 1. So from 1, it will add 1 to it to 2 until it gets to what? 15. So the loop will run 15 times. And I'll bring a curly brackets and bring the closing one downwards. So when I make it this way, this is one option for achieving my goal. I can also decide that instead of using the 15 over here, I can also say I can declare a variable here, say integer number of workers, and give it a value of 15. So I can declare number of workers as a variable and give it that value, and change this one to number of workers. So it is saying that the I will start from 1 and it will loop until it gets to the number of workers, which is 15, stored in that particular variable. And anytime it loops, it will add 1 to the initial value. So this is another option that we can also use to achieve the same thing. So you can pick the first option, you can also pick this one, or you can also do it this way. Instead of doing this, you can make the I start from 0 and end at 14 instead of 15. So this is also correct. This loop is going to run 15 times, because this time around it is not starting from 1. That's why we are not ending at 15. We are starting from 0 and ending at 14. So it will loop 15 times. So this one also works. Okay, we are moving on to the second method. The second method is to allow the user to input his own number of workers. So if the user wants to enter 2 employees, the user has the opportunity to enter 2 employees. If the user wants to enter 15 employees, the user has the opportunity to enter 15 employees. So what you do is you create a variable for the number of employees. So int num of workers. So I've created the variable for the number of workers. So what I'm going to do is to allow the user to enter those number of workers. So I'll decide to show him something. So system.out.print, and I'll decide to show him that he should enter the number of workers. So with this line, with this particular line, it will display this message onto the screen so that it will guide the user on what to do. So the statement enter the number of workers will be shown on the screen so that it will guide the user what to do. So after showing this to the user, we allow the user to enter the number of workers. And in Java, we have already explained that to allow a user to enter something, we have to use an object. And we have already created the object here called input. So we are going to use this object to allow the user to enter something to be stored inside this particular variable that we have created. So the variable is num of workers. So instead of giving it, let's say 15 over here, we are now going to allow the user to enter the particular number. So we will not right away give it a value of 15. What we do is to use the object that we created over here to allow input, to allow the user to type that particular number. So based on the name you used over here, then you also use the same thing over here. So because I used input, that's why I'm using the word input. If you used the word, let's say sum over here, then you have to also use sum here. So based on the name of the object you gave it, that is what we'll be using here. So I'll change it back to input. So I use input, and now the next thing to figure out is the variable that we gave here. What data type did we give to it? We gave it a data type of int. So the next thing that we have to add is dot next int. So because the data type is an integer, that's why we're giving it what? A next int. If the data type was a double, then this part would have been next double instead of next int. So based on the data type that you give that particular variable, that is what will determine what you are going to put over here. So since it is an integer, I'll change it back to an integer and end with a semicolon. So by doing this, it will allow the user to enter the number of workers, and it will be stored in this particular variable. So I have to change my for loop to look this way. The loop should start from 0. The loop should start from 1 and end at the number that the user typed. That particular number is going to be stored in this variable. So I have to use the same variable here. So the loop should start from 1 and end at whatever the user typed to be stored in this particular variable, and it should increase by 1. So this is one way to also achieve the second option. Now someone can pick this particular way. Another way is that you see that we are allowing the user to enter the number. The user can decide to enter a negative number, let's say -3 or 0 or 19. Our question says we should do it for 15. So at most our program should accommodate 15 workers, not more than 15. So we have to implement something over here so that it will allow the user not to type 0 or a negative number and not to go beyond 15 too. So what will we do? Instead of doing this, I'll take this away. So this is another option that we can also choose. So we are going to use a loop. Since we are going to make it in this form, if the user does something that we don't want, it should repeat again. So based on the condition, the code should keep on repeating until that condition is not met. So what we do is to use a do while loop. So we are allowing the user to do something. So I type do and bring a curly bracket. We are allowing the user to do something. What are we allowing the user to do? First of all, we are going to show something to the user. So system.out.print. What are we showing to the user? We are showing to the user to type the number of workers. So after showing this to the user, we have to allow the user to type the number of workers. So the same way, when the person types the number of workers, it should be stored inside this particular variable. So I'll bring that variable here, which is equal to the user we are going to allow the user to enter the number of workers. So what we do is to use the object that we created here. So I'll use input and I'll add dot. So the number of workers is an integer, so I'll add next int and end with a semicolon. So we are doing this, we are allowing the program to do this, and after the user enters the number, we will perform a check. So we bring a while here and bring another curly brackets. So we bring a while here and bring an opening bracket, not a curly bracket. So we are going to put the condition inside this round brackets. So what condition? If the user enters something less than 1, which is 0 and below, so I can decide to say what the user will enter will be stored inside this particular variable, num of workers. So I'll bring num of workers is less than 1. So if the user enters something that is less than 1, the code will tell the user to do this again. So if the user enters something that is less than 1, it will go back to this place and run it again. So this code over here, these two things will keep on running if the user enters something that is less than 1. Apart from doing it this way, someone can also decide to do it this way. If it is less than or equal to 0. So let's vary our answers. So if the user enters something that is less than or equal to 0, then the code will run again. This particular two codes will run again. If the user enters something that is less than 0, it will still run again until the user enters something that is more than 0. So either we use this one or we use less than 1. These two will work perfectly. Now another thing that we can add is if the user also enters something that is more than 15, the program shouldn't continue. It should ask the user to what? Enter the particular number again. I have to end this one too with a semicolon. So what we do is the conditions are not just 1. So what we do is to add or, these two symbols, and then we add the number of workers should also not be greater than 15. So if he enters something that is less than 1, this code will run again. If he enters something that is greater than 15, this code will run again. This side too, someone can also change it to be should not be greater than, if he enters something that is greater than or equal to 16. So another way we can also achieve the same thing is to change this part to greater than or equal to 16. So another way we can also achieve the same thing is to use the number of workers is greater than or equal to 16. So let's vary our answers so that we can we can achieve our aim. Okay. Okay, so the part that we are for the question is to take the information for every worker. So for every worker, we are going to take the worker's name, the hours worked, and then the number of children. So it is something that will be done for every worker. It is something that will be done repeatedly. So since it will be done repeatedly, we are going to do it inside the for loop. So we are going to make it run for every worker. So for every worker, we are going to accept the name, we are going to accept the hours worked, and we are going to accept the number of children. So what I'll do is, we can choose this way. We prompt the user with an output message that enter your name. So we prompt the user to enter his or her name, and we allow the user to enter the name. Now, because we are going to allow the user to enter the name is supposed to be stored in a particular variable. So we have to also declare that particular variable as well. So the variable is going to be a name. A name is the data type for a name is mostly a string, not an integer. So we use a string instead of int. And mind you, the int starts with a small letter, but the string starts with a capital letter. So I'm going to give it a name. So I've declared my variable here. So the next thing is, I'm going to use that particular variable, and I'm going to allow the user to enter something to be stored in that particular variable. So I've already created the object, which is called what? Input. So I'm going to use input dot. Now the data type for this particular string, for this particular variable, is not an integer but rather a string. So what I'm going to do is, for a string, it is either you use next or next line. The next line will allow you to enter multiple, let's say more than one name. So if your name is Emmanuel Odru, it will allow you to enter Emmanuel Odru. But if you use the next, it will only allow you to enter one. Either you are entering Emmanuel or you are entering Odru. So what I will do is to use the next line, and I bring my brackets and end with a semicolon. So these two lines are going to allow every worker, or it is going to allow the user to enter the names of every worker that the user inputted. So if the user inputted 5 over here, the loop is going to run 5 times, and it will always ask the person to enter the name of that particular worker. So after doing this, we have to consume this particular input. So we have to use the input without any variable. You see, when we are using the input over here, the input object that we created, when we were using it, we were using it alongside a variable, so that when the user enters something, it will be stored in this. So after this one, we have to consume that particular entry. So I'll use input dot the same next line and end with a semicolon. So our first thing has been achieved. Okay, so the next part is for us to be able to accept the number of hours the person worked. So still within the for loop, I'll come down and I'll show something to the user. So system dot out dot print, bring my brackets, bring my curly. So I'll show something, enter number of hours or enter hours worked, and with a semicolon. So on the next line I have to allow the user to enter the number of hours worked. So when the user enters the number of hours, it's supposed to be stored in a particular variable. So I have to first declare the variable. So I'll go here, and the number of hours, you can choose an integer, you can choose a double based on what you want. If you choose a double, then you are using an idea of someone can type 2.5 hours, maybe at 2.50 hours. So if you don't want it that way and you want the person to type like 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours without any decimal point, then you have to declare it as an integer too. So the int num of workers, you can decide to do it this way. You can declare a different one and make it hours worked. This will work perfectly. But you can also, because the same data type, we are using the same data type, int, you can also decide to do it this way. Instead of bringing it on a different line, you bring comma here and add hours worked. So on the same line, we have a declaration of an integer with number of workers and then hours worked. So I can now come back to this side, and I can say that now the hours worked is equal to, the hours worked is going to be typed by the user. So we have created the object for accepting input, which is the word input. So I'll use input. If you use the different name, then you have to use that particular name. Dot, because the hours worked is also an integer, I'm going to choose next int, and I end with a semicolon. So this will also allow the user to type the number of hours worked. Another option that you can use is that, because I've done it this way, the user can type -3 hours, -7 hours. So what if you want to prevent the user from typing a negative number? So you can also implement a do while loop over here, just like we did for the number of workers. So instead of doing this way, I can also choose to clean this one and use a do while loop. So I type do, I bring a curly brackets, then system dot out dot print, enter hours worked. And with a semicolon. And the same way we are storing it in hours worked is equal to, we are going to allow the user to type something. So I'll use the object input. Hours worked is an integer, so next int, and with a semicolon. So we can also do it this way and bring a condition here. So what is the condition? The condition is that the numbers should not be less than 0. So the user cannot type an hours worked which is less than 0. So I'm going to use hours worked should not be less than what? 0. And end with a semicolon. So when I implement it this way, if the user tries to enter -1 hours, it will come and perform the check here and say that, oh, what you have typed is less than 0. It's less than 0, so do it again. So we can also implement it this way. So we are done with the hours worked. We can also implement, so the next thing is to also implement the number of children. So just like we did a do while loop here, we can also implement a do while loop for the number of children so that the user wouldn't also enter a negative number. So I bring my curly braces. What should the program do for us? It should first show to the user system.out.print. Should first show to the user enter number of children, and with a semicolon. Okay, so if you show this to the user, what should we do next? The user should type something to store into a variable which will keep the number of children. So we have to first declare that particular variable. So again, the number of children should be something that is either 1, 2. We cannot have 2.5 number of children. So we have to declare the number of children as an integer. So we come to where we declared the integer variables. We can add another one, comma, and make it, let's say, children. So we can come here and say that the children that we declared is equal to, now we are going to allow the user to input something, and we have created the object and named it input. So input dot the children, we declared it as an integer, so next int, then we end with a semicolon. So after typing it, it should also perform the check. So I have to add a while here and put the condition inside a bracket. So what is the condition? The children that we declared. So the children should be such that it is not less than what? 0. And then we end with a semicolon. So the number of workers should not be, so the hours worked should not be less than 0, and the children should also not be less than 0. So if the user types -1, it will also show that the user should type it again. So we have implemented the 2. After we are done, after the user enters his name, the hours, and then the number of children, then we should, based on what the user has entered, to calculate the gross profit. So what was the calculation for the gross profit? When you check the question says that if a user works less than or equal to 40 hours, there is an amount that it should be paid. So let's go to the question. So the question says that employees who work for hours not exceeding 40 hours, so either 40 or less, are considered to have worked regular hours. So whilst those who worked excess of 40 hours are considered to have worked overtime. So there are 2 categories of workers: those who worked 40 and less, and those who worked overtime. So the regular workers are paid 50 Ghana cedis per hour. So it means that for the regular ones, there's a way of paying them. So we should make sure that when we are calculating the gross profit, we base on the conditions that was given into the question, or that was given inside the question to calculate the gross profit. So because it is based on conditions, we have to use the if statement. So if, what is the first condition? The first condition is the hours worked is less than or equal to 40. So that is the first condition. The first condition is that the hours worked is less than or equal to 40. So if it is less than or equal to 40, how should we calculate the gross profit? So we put that calculation inside the curly bracket. So the gross profit or the gross pay is equal to, now we have not declared the gross pay, so we have to go back and declare the gross pay. So we can decide to declare it at the top here or even within the for loop, but I'll choose to declare it over here. So the pay salary can have a decimal point, so I'm not going to declare it as an integer, but I'm going to declare it as a double. So double gross pay. So that gross pay over here is equal to, now what did the question say? The question said that the number of hours. So when the person worked 40 hours or less, then the gross pay should be the hours worked times, each hour is supposed to multiply 50 and with a semicolon. So this is the calculation the question gave to us. When I go back to the question, it says that employees who work for hours not exceeding 40 are considered to have worked regular hours. So the regular hours worked are paid 50 Ghana cedis per hour. So the regular is 50 Ghana cedis per hour. So that's why we are implementing it this way. So if someone worked either less than or equal to 40, then the hours worked, the gross pay is the hours worked times the 50 Ghana cedis. So we bring an else statement here to cater for those who will work more than 40 hours. So I bring enter, I bring my curly brackets, and within the curly brackets I also declare gross pay. So if the hours worked is less than or equal to 40, the gross pay is calculated differently. And if it is more than 40, the gross pay is also calculated differently. So the gross pay is equal to, how are we going to calculate the gross pay? Now the gross pay is going to be the regular pay for 40 hours plus the overtime. So it's going to be the regular pay for 40 hours plus what? The overtime. So how do we calculate the gross pay for the regular hours for 40 hours? So we can bring a bracket and say that it is going to be 40 hours times the 50 Ghana cedis. So it's going to be this one plus the overtime. So how do we calculate the overtime? Let's go back and look at the question. So the question says the regular hours worked are paid 50 Ghana cedis per hour, whilst overtime hours worked are paid at a rate of 1.5 of the regular rate per hour. So the 1.5 of the regular rate per hour. So 1.5, 1.5 is the same as 1.5. So 1.5 of the what? The regular pay per hour. So when you calculate 1.5 of the regular pay, which is 50, you realize that it is what? 70. So the rate is what? So it is 75. So the rate is 75. So you are going to have 75 times the number of overtime hours the person did. So the number of overtime hours the person did. So I can do it this way. The 75 times, how do we calculate the overtime hours? The overtime hours will be the hours worked. The hours worked minus 40. So that is how we are going to calculate the overtime hours. So the hours worked minus 40 will give us the overtime hours, which will multiply the 75 before it comes to add to the regular rate or the regular pay for 40 hours. So this is how the gross pay is calculated for someone who exceeded 40 hours. So the next part is to take care of the taxes. So we have 15%, 1%, 3%. 15% is for income tax, 1% is for national health, and then 3% is for district tax. So we are going to take care of those three things. Okay, so I'll come back to my code and take care of the first one, which is the income tax. So the income tax is equal to, what was the calculation? The calculation was 15%. So we can do this 15.0 over 100. So 15% off, so times the gross pay. So this is a calculation for the income tax. But then you realize that we have not declared income tax. So you have to go back to our code and declare income tax. Since it is money and it will contain decimal points, you have to declare it as a double. So I go here and add it to my double. So I add income tax. So I've declared it here now. So I have income tax is equal to 15% of the gross pay. Someone can choose it to do it this way. Another method is to calculate the 15%. 15% is 0.5, so 0.15. So you can also use 0.15 to also calculate the income tax. Any is correct. So choose one that suits you. The next one is the national health. So national health is equal to, that one is also 1%. So I have 1.0 over 100 star the gross pay. So 1% of the gross pay is for national health. So you can do it this way, and you realize that national health was not also declared. That one also can contain decimal points. So I'll go back and add it to my double. So national health. So I've declared it now. Just like the income tax, if you want to change this one to, you can change this one to 1% is the same as 0.01. So you can either choose this or the other one. So that will cater for national health. The next one is district tax. So district tax is also 3%. So just like we did before, you can also do 3.0 over 100. So star the gross pay. So since we have not declared district tax, we have to go back to our code and add it to our double. So district tax. So I come back here and then I can decide to change this one to 0.3% is 0.03. So all of these are correct. Now, one thing we could have also done is, instead of adding them to the declarations over here, we could have just also kept only the gross pay there and added the double to this one. So someone should also go for this. Add double to this, double to this. So we are declaring and performing the calculation. So we could have also done it this way. So let's not choose one procedure, either this way or you declare everything at the top. So we have also calculated for district tax. The next thing is to calculate for the get fund. But get fund was given a condition. If the number of children is greater than 3, that is where we are going to calculate get fund per the excess child. So what we do is to use the if else to do the get fund. So if the number of children, and then we gave the variable to be children. So when you go to the top here, when the user was entering the number of children, we gave the variable to be children. So we have to use children. So if that children that the user typed, put it in the bracket. So if that children that the user typed is less than or equal to 3, what will be the calculation? The calculation is that get fund, he won't pay any get fund. So the get fund will be 0. So if the number of children is less than or equal to 3, the person is not going to pay any get fund. So it's going to be 0. But if the person has more than 3 children, then the get fund will be 1 Ghana cedis times the excess children. So how do we calculate the excess children? The children the person typed minus the 3 and with a semicolon. So this is how we are going to calculate the get fund. But you see that we didn't also declare the get fund. So we can also go here and declare the get fund. So since the get fund is also going to be money, we can also declare it as a double. So I add get fund. So right now I have the calculation for income tax, national health, district tax, and then get fund. So what do I do? To find the net profit, which is the next step, we have to first add all the deductions and subtract from the gross profit. So we can say that the deductions or the total deductions is equal to the income tax plus the national health plus the district tax plus the get fund. So all of these are going to be subtracted from the gross profit. So because we have not declared the total deductions as a variable, we have to go back and declare it as a variable. Since it is also going to be money, we have to also declare it as a double. So we can choose to add it here, or we can choose to add double to this side. So we can choose to declare and perform the calculations here, or we can choose to go back to the top and add it to this side. So I have total deductions. So after finding the total deductions, I am going to now subtract the total deductions from the gross profit. So the next thing is to find the net profit. So the net No, the net P, sorry, the net P. I've been saying profit. So the net P is equal to the gross P minus the total deductions. Since you have not declared the net P, you have to also go there and declare the net P. So we can decide to declare the net P here, or the same way add a double here to declare the net P. So I'm going to take this one off and then declare it here too. So I have net P. So right now I've performed the calculation for gross P, for income tax, national health district, the get fund, found the total deductions and subtracted the total deductions from the gross profit from the gross P to get what? The net P. Now from the question it says that we should also find the total net P. So the net pay for each employee should be added up to get the total net pay. So the next thing is to calculate. for the total net pay. So what I've done is I've declared the total net pay here. So I'll come and do the calculation. So the total net pay is going to be an accumulation of the net pay for each employee. So I'm going to use plus equals the net pay to cater for that. So the total net pay is an accumulation of what? The net pay. But because I am performing the accumulations without initializing this one, it's going to, if I don't take it, to give me an error. So I have to go back and initialize the total net pay to 0. So I have the calculation. So I have the calculation for gross pay. I have the calculation for income tax, national health, district tax, the get fund, the total deductions, the net pay, and then the total net pay. So the next calculation is to find the average net pay. So the average net pay will be equal to the total net pay that we are getting. So the total net pay that we are getting divided by the number of workers. So this part is very critical. If you chose this part when we were beginning, if you chose that you would give it 15 and not allow the user to type his own number, then this part you have to also put 15. But if you chose that the user should type his own number of workers, then you have to use this variable that we gave here, the number of workers. So you should divide by the number of workers that the user typed. So you should be careful. If you allow the user to type his own number, this part should be divided by that particular variable that you used. But if you didn't allow and you use 15 straightforward, then this part should be what? 15. Since I've not declared average net pay, it's going to give me an error. So I have to go back here and also add it to my variables. So average net pay. So I have all my calculations done as per the question. The next thing is to display the information that the program will give for us. So if the user types the information of the employee, what information should be shown to the user? So that is the next part. So I'm going to use system.out.print. Now, for this one, you can decide to show the outputs one after the other. For example, you can decide to show gross pay, let's say gross pay for then you bring the name. So you can decide to do it this way. So if I do it this way, this will happen. This text will show to the user, and then the name of that particular user will follow. Then this symbol will follow. Then the gross pay of that particular user will also follow. So that is how I've made this output statement. There are so many ways of making this output statement. So you can also bring another system.out.print line and also make it net pay, let's say after deductions. Then you can make it is then the net pay. End with this. So it shows the gross pay and then the net pay for each particular employee. So after it has done it for all the particular employees, then you show the total net pay and then the average net pay. So this shouldn't be done for every employee. So we won't put it inside the for loop. We have to put it outside the for loop. So we have to put it outside this curly bracket. So I put my cursor here, press enter to bring it down. This is the ending of the for loop. So this is the beginning of the for loop, and then this is the end of the for loop. So you have to put it outside. So I bring system.out.print line, and I'm going to show the total net pay. So total net pay is, then I add total net pay and with a semicolon. Then I add system.out.print line the average net pay. So average net pay is average net pay. I made a mistake here, so change it to average net pay. So this is the end of our program to perform the calculations and show us the output. So the last thing to do is to initialize this average net pay to. So I'll come to where I declared the average net pay, and I have to initialize it to 0. Save it and come back to my code. So this is the end of the program that we were tasked to do. Okay, so after running it, I saw that I made a simple mistake over here and I changed it. So this particular line, I put this particular line over here. So what you do is to change this particular line and move it to the top. So put this particular line at the top to avoid any complications. So the last thing I'll do is to teach you how to compile, run, take a screenshot, and then get your assignment ready for submission. So what you do is you come here to the start button and search for command prompt. So you can even search for it. So command prompt. So I have command prompt open. Now the folder for mine, I saved it on the desktop and I named it Java assignment. So what I'll do is to first move to the desktop. So the folder is on my desktop. So I'll type CD, standing for change directory. So CD desktop, I press enter. So I'm now inside the desktop. The next thing is the folder is called Java assignment. So I'll change directory to Java assignment. So the way you named your folder, that is what you should type. So I change folder to Java assignment. So my Java file is in that particular folder. If I open the folder, you see that my Java file is inside there. So right now I can compile that particular file because I'm in that folder right now. So what I'll do is to type Java C, then the name of the file was payment info.java. So that was the name of my file. So any form that you named your file, you can also use it. I advise that we don't use the same name for everyone. It will raise concerns. So I compile it, and because there are no errors, it wouldn't show me any error over here. So the next thing is to run that particular compiled file. So I'll type Java without any C and type the name of the file again, which is payment info. This time around, I'm not going to add any .java. So I run it, and now it is running. It is asking me to type the number of workers. So I can decide to type 15. If I type 15, it means I have to type the information for 15 different employees. But I'll type 2 for convenience sake. So I type 2, and it asks me to type the name of the first employee. So I type Emmanuel. I hit enter. How many hours worked? 45 hours. How many children? 5. So it calculated the gross pay for Emmanuel for me and gave me this. The net pay after the deductions, it gave me this. So it is asking me to enter the name of the second employee. So I type, let's say, Samuel. Hit enter. Number of hours worked, let's say 30. Number of children, 3. So it also gave me the gross pay for Samuel as 1,500, the net pay after the deductions. And after giving me each employee's gross pay and net pay, it is giving me the total net pay and then the average net pay for everything before the program closed. So right now what I can do is make this one larger and take a screenshot. There is a button, there is a key on the keyboard used for taking screenshot. It is called print screen. Most of the times it is shorthanded as PRTSC. So you can press that. When you press it, nothing will happen, but a screenshot has been taken. So you press on it. You can now minimize or close this one, but I choose to minimize it. Then you come and open, let's say, Microsoft Word. So I search for Word. So I search for Word and I create a blank one. Now I can now right click here and select paste so that what I printed on the screen can be pasted. So I click on paste. Because I'm using multiple screens, that's why it gave me these two. So I can hold here. If I want to make it bigger, I can hold here and make it bigger. So I can hold and make it bigger. Click and drag. So if I'm satisfied with how it looks now, I can now save this one as a PDF file. So I can, the reason why I did this is because when I tried copying the code itself into Microsoft Word, it changed the formatting of my code. It made it look some way. So I created the PDF for just the screenshot. So I click on file, I come to print. So you make sure that the printer is at Microsoft Print to PDF. Then you click on print. So it gives you an option to type the name. So it is advisable that you save it inside the folder you created for your assignment. So I come to desktop, I come to the Java assignment, and now I can come here and type the name. So let's say screenshot. So I click on save. So I've saved the screenshot. I can now close this one. So if I come back to my folder, you see that I have the PDF of the screenshot over here. Now I can also open for the code. For the code itself, I can also open Notepad. And so I can go to my program and copy everything. So right click and select copy. So copy everything and come to Notepad and paste it here. So you see that when I do it this way, it is formatted correctly for me, so that I don't lose the way it is formatted when I paste it inside Microsoft Word. Now one last thing is, if you want to add comments, you can also add comments to the code itself and explain what each code is doing. So for example, I can add a comment to this particular one. I can say // allow user to enter number of workers. I can come here and add a comment to this side and say this particular code is also going to take employee information. So I can also come to this side and say that this particular code is also calculating gross profit. A gross pay. So I can also say that, so you can add comments to each part that you want to describe the particular code, to describe what the code is doing. So after getting this, then you can click on file. You can also select print. So just like we did, make sure you select the Microsoft Print to PDF, and then you click on print. So just like we did, go to the desktop, the folder that you stored your assignment in, which is this one, and then give it a name. So let's say assignment code, and save it. So I can now close this one or even minimize it. So if I come to the folder, you see that I have the assignment code as PDF, I have the screenshot as PDF. So what I'll do is to merge the two PDF files. So to merge the two PDF files, I can use an online merger. So connect your machine to the internet. So I'm connecting my machine to the internet. Okay, so the next process is to merge the two PDF files. So search for I love PDF, the very first one. So I select it and I come to merge PDF. So I select this one too. So right now I have to yes. So you can press on the first one, then you press on control. Don't remove your hand. So you press on control and then you hit on the next one. Then you click on open. So you see that I have the two files. So I can now come and click on merge PDF. So the PDF have been merged. If you get this, sometimes it will automatically download the merged file for you. If it does not download the merged file for you, you can just click on this one to download the merged file. So if it doesn't automatically download the merged file for you, you click on this one to download the merged file. But for me, it's automatically downloaded for me. So the name of the file is assignment code underscore merged. So if you want to get the file easily, you can just click on this particular button to show in folder, so that it opens the folder where the file was saved. So you can click on this and then it opens the folder where it was saved. Now if you don't have that button, most of the times it is saved in the downloads folder. So you can just come and open any folder on the desktop. So let's say I open this particular folder and I come here and select downloads. So this is the file, the merge file. So if you want to the our assignment says that we should rename the file into our index number underscore name. So you right click on this one, and then you select rename. So you can change it to your index number, says Deben, 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 then underscore, then your full name, Juma Odro Emmanuel. Then you save it. So it says that my file is open in Adobe Acrobat. So let me cancel it first. So if I go here, I realize that it has opened the file for me here. After it downloaded, it automatically opened. So I have to close it. So now I can go back to the folder. I can go back to the folder and try and rename it again. So it says downloads, right click, select rename, and then says 5 underscore Juma Odro Emmanuel. Hit enter. And the file, so we are sending this file to our lecturer through the email. So you go to your Gmail account and then you send this particular file to him.